Black tax is often described as a burden where many black professionals have to share their salaries with their family. This sometimes leads to them struggling financially as they're then forced to overspend or get into a debt trap. Today I'm joined by John Manyike, who's the head of financial education at Old Mutual, to discuss this issue. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. This term has been called problematic and people are saying you shouldn't use it. So talk to us about when this term is being used, what does it actually mean and what are the ramifications of that?
Well, I think I also subscribe to that view that black tax as a term actually could be offensive to many people who understand the origins of black tax. In fact, we have substituted the word Ubuntu with black tax. And when people think of tax, they're thinking of something that they pay grudgingly. And then, of course, the mere reference of the word black, people then are questioning to say, why does it have to be termed in that way? But the reality is you do have people who are deputy breadwinners while they're still at school, and they are questioning the rationality of having to contribute to the bigger family and so on. Maybe because maybe they're not privy to the history and where it started. And so forth, and having to deal with that situation.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of history, because a lot of the time the reason that black people are burdened with this is because of the legacy of colonialism, apartheid, what it's done, and how people perhaps are left behind economically. So it's a systemic problem that you as an individual then need to counter in a way that's in a personal way. So how do you do that, knowing that you are going to have to support people, it's going to take a lot of your money, and perhaps you can't save and do as much as possible?
Yeah, I think, again, if you go into history, I think you have to appreciate the standpoint of young people in this country who might feel a bit constrained by having to contribute towards the bigger family and also having to look after themselves. Because, I mean, their grandparents were living in a different time where, they used to share in the Commonwealth, they used to live in close proximity. With the migration of African families into cities, and of course, exactly to what you referred to, colonization and so forth, it meant that living far away from a family, we're no longer, sharing resources, we're no longer pooling our resources and so forth, which means that we are now under pressure to send money back home. If you were living with them, it would have been much easier. But there are ways to actually absorb that particular pressure, as a young person, especially. The need for financial planning, speaking to a financial advisor, they need to look at exactly how much is realistic that you can contribute. I think it's very important to appreciate the fact that you cannot give what you don't have. So it has to be done within reason.
And then how practically, if you're watching, do you break down that budget of how much you can give and how much you can save, and also plan for emergencies where something happens at home and there's more money that's needed than normal, perhaps?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that people need to do is to, again, look at the whole way that they're actually generating income, because currently salaries are not necessarily increasing in line with inflation. I'm talking about the net growth here. Now, given that, I mean, if you're going to depend on a single salary to spread, between family members, it might not be realistic to rely on that. So there is certainly a need to look at other ways of increasing your income. You need to have a side hustle on the side. You also need to look at how do you use your newly acquired knowledge, perhaps to start something, even if it means building smaller rooms in the backyard to get a rental income. But you have to find ways to actually supplement that income, because you cannot just rely on a single income.
Does the South African financial sector adequately plan and assist people who are in the situation where they need to look after more than just their immediate families?
I think to the extent that people see the value of getting financial advice, but otherwise you just have people lamenting the fact that they cannot cope and they are so financially distressed, they're struggling with keeping up with debts. So it's very important to speak to a financial advisor and look at what are tools that I could use, what are the savings and investment instrument that I could use. But again, you have to appreciate the fact that it's quite complex when you consider that people are also struggling with debts themselves, and hence the argument that you have to look for a side hustle of some sort.
Would that be the one piece of advice that you'd give to someone watching who's trying to get out of a situation like that?
Absolutely. That, but also having to rationally interrogate your budget as well, to say other things you can do without so that you actually live within your means.
Thanks so much for your time. John Manyike, who's the Head of Financial Education at Old Mutual, joining me in studio there.